So this is a basic derivation strategy video. So I'm going to try to spell out the strategy in a way that I think you'll find really helpful and straightforward. First, I'm going to talk about some issues with using inference rules, and then I'm going to spell out the basic derivation strategy, and then I'm going to do several derivations and illustrate it, and then I'll review the basic derivation strategy at the end. Okay, so let's get going. So first, inference rules. So here we have the 5 inference rules, Modus Ponens, or MP, which says if you have a conditional and the antecedent of the conditional, you can infer the consequent. We have Modus Tollens, or MT, that says if you have a conditional and the negation of the conditional is consequent, then you can infer the negation of the conditional's antecedent. We have double negation elimination, which says if you have a sentence with 2 negations in front of it, you can write down the sentence without those 2 negations. We have double negation introduction, which says if you have a sentence, you can write down the sentence with 2 double negations in front of it. And we have repetition, which we're not going to worry about. Now, it's critical that you memorize these rules. You have to have these rules memorized. If you went to Russia and you tried to go around and get things done, you would need to know Russian. If you didn't, you might be able to mime a few things, but basically you'd be incapacitated. The logic program is even less sort of can't pick up on miming. It only knows its rules, and so these are the rules that you have to use. There's no way around it. And all of these rules are necessary, not in every derivation, but for any given rule, there are a bunch of derivations where the rule cannot be got around. You have to use the rule. And that means if you're going to complete the derivations, you need to know what all of the rules are. Until you have them memorized, I recommend that you have this PDF, the Basic Derivation Rules and Strategy PDF, printed out. It's in this unit, and it has the inference rules. Here they are. And then it also has the basic strategy, which I will discuss later. So this is super valuable. You want to have this in front of you so you don't have to always be guessing what the rules are, okay? So until they're memorized, have this printed out and handy. And print it out. If you have it on your screen, it's going to be hidden away. You're going to forget about it probably. So just print it out and have it when you're doing derivations. Okay, so that's not what we want. That's what we want. Good. So the other thing I want to say about inference rules, besides the fact that you need to memorize them, is this: that the circle and the square can be they can be sentence letters like P or Y, but they can also be complex sentences like not P, or if P then Y. So let me illustrate this. So suppose we have this conditional if P then Q then R, and that might be something like if I open up the fridge, then I will see ice cream, only if I'm happy. Or, if I open up the fridge, only if I then see ice cream, I will be happy. So what is this saying? It says, well, suppose that if I open the fridge, I see ice cream. Well, if opening the fridge is enough to see ice cream, that is enough for me being happy. Okay, so what the Modus Ponens here says is, okay, if I have this is a legitimate application of Modus Ponens. Why? Well, I have the conditional that says whose main connective is between the R on the one hand and the if P then Q on the other hand. That's the conditional on the top line, and its main connective is the conditional on the right, and so its antecedent is if P then Q. And I have if P then Q, so I have a conditional and its antecedent. And Modus Ponens says if you have a conditional and its antecedent, you can write down the consequent. So this is an okay application of Modus Ponens. It's important that we be able to do this. You'll be doing this a lot as we proceed, not immediately, but a lot. Here's an application of Modus Tollens. So Modus Tollens, remember, says if you have a conditional and you have the negation of the conditional's consequent, then you can write down the negation of the conditional's antecedent. So on the first line we have a conditional, its antecedent is R, its consequent is if P then Q. On the second line we have not if P then Q. So on the second line we have the negation of the consequent of the first line. And Modus Tollens says when you have a conditional and you have the negation of the consequent of that conditional, you can write down the negation of the antecedent, and that's what we have. So we can make these complex applications. So the antecedent might just be if P then R, and also P, and then we get to write down R, but also if P then Q, then R, and if P then Q, we get to write down R. So that's a point we're going to need to hold on to as we go forward. Okay. Good. Now, so with these points about inference rules, let's look at the basic strategy. So the basic strategy is this. We're going to have 3 stages. First stage is the setup stage, and this has 2 parts. First, you want to show the line, you want to write a show line, so you show, and then the conclusion of the argument you're trying to do the derivation of. And the easiest way to do this is just in the justification column, write show conc, and that will just write show and then whatever the conclusion is. Then enter all the premises. So the argument may have multiple premises. It may have none in special cases. Don't worry about those right now. In all the cases we're interested in, there are going to be some premises, so put them all in. So you're going to have a show line and then some premises. That's the first big step. Second big stage is to use our inference rules. Modus Ponens, Modus Tollens, double negation. Now, we're most interested in using Modus Ponens and Modus Tollens in general, it's going to turn out. Sometimes we can't right away, and then we need to use double negation to set up Modus Ponens and Modus Tollens, and so you would use double negation in those cases where you need to. We'll see some cases where we do that in a few minutes. Then finally, you want to finish the derivation. And how does that happen? Well, at some point, the conclusion of the you'll get whatever the conclusion of the argument is, you'll get that on a line. So say you get it on line 5. Then on the next line, so in this case line 6, you would write the line number of the previous line, so in this case 5, and then DD for direct derivation. So you get on one line you have the conclusion, on the next line you write the previous line number and then DD. So if you have the conclusion on line 5, then on line 6 you write 5DD in the justification column, you hit enter, and you are done. You've boxed and canceled. So that's the basic strategy. So, okay, let's look at some examples of its being applied. So remember, here is that basic strategy, basic derivation rules and strategy handout. It has the rules, and then on the other side we have the basic strategy. So you might want to have these probably actually as on 2 separate pages. So let's look at some derivations. Okay, so here we have a derivation that's about as simple as it could be. So we have this is the argument. Here we got premise 1, if x then y, and premise 2, x, so separated by the period. And then we have the triple dot sign, and after that is the conclusion. So the conclusion is y. The first premise is if x and y, and the second premise is x. So the first thing we do is this when we're doing the derivations, we do the setup. So we do show conclusion as of the first part of our setup. The second part of our setup is to bring in the premises. So there we go, premise 1 and then premise 2. We could have just said premise and then it would ask us which one. Either way is fine there. So we've done the first 2 stages. We've done show conclusion and we entered all the premises. And you want to enter all of the premises because you will always need to use all of them. There are never any extra or extraneous premises. So first 2 stages, show the conclusion, enter all the premises. Next, do our inference rules. And if we can, we just do Modus Ponens and Modus Tollens. If we can't, we'll do double negation to set them up. Okay, so we look, this is just a straightforward application of Modus Ponens, because on line 2 we have a conditional, and on line 3 we have the antecedent of the conditional, so we say I want to apply Modus Ponens to 2 and 3, I want to apply the rule Modus Ponens, and that gives me y. Y is my conclusion. Okay, I have the conclusion on line 4, so what do I do on the next line? I write line 4, direct derivation, and I am done. Okay, so those are the 3 stages in as simple derivation as we could do. Show the conclusion, enter the premises, apply Modus Ponens or Modus Tollens, get the conclusion, say we have it with direct derivation. Okay, let's look at another one. So again, here we have, well, we don't actually even need to look at the argument yet, because we know always we do show conclusion first, and that's y, good. And then we want to bring in each of the premises, and there's only 2, so there is no third premise. So here are our 2 premises. We have x, and if x, then not y. Okay, well, so can we do Modus Ponens or Modus Tollens? Yeah, we can do Modus Ponens because we have the conditional of x and not y, and we have its antecedent x. So 2, 3 modus ponens, and we get the consequent, which is not y. Is that the conclusion? No, because the conclusion is just y by itself. So we need to apply double negation, and we need to get rid of the double negations, and we get y. And so there is our, now we have the conclusion, and so now we can say direct derivation. So this is slightly more complicated. First stage, show the conclusion. First part of the first stage, show the conclusion. Second part of the first stage, enter all the premises. Second stage, do inference rules. So immediately we could do modus ponens. That got us close to being done, but not all the way to being done. So then we did double negation, and we got the conclusion, and we're done. Good. Okay. Let's look at another one. So again, first part of stage 1, show the conclusion. Second part of stage 1, bring in all the premises. There are only 2 premises, so we're done with the second part of stage 1. Now we go to the next stage, which is inference rules. We want to apply inference rules. Okay. Can we apply modus ponens? Well, here's the only conditional we have. So if we're going to do modus ponens, it's with this. What do we need for modus ponens? We need not x. Do we have not x? No. We have x, but we don't have not x. For modus tollens, what would we need? We would need not y. We don't have not y. So we appear to be kind of stuck. Well, if we look at what the basic strategy suggestion is, it says, if you can't do modus ponens or modus tollens right away, use double negation to let you do modus ponens or modus tollens. So what we need for modus ponens is not x. Okay, so how are we going to get not x? Well, if we put 2 negations on line 2, we'll get not x. So we'll say 2 double negation, and we get not x. And now we can do modus ponens with 3 and 4, because 4 is the antecedent of 3. So when you have a conditional and its antecedent, however complex they are, doesn't matter. If you have the conditional and its antecedent, you can do modus ponens, and that gives us the line 5 is the conclusion, and so we can say direct derivation, and our derivation is complete. So here it's slightly more complicated because we had to do double negation first, and then modus ponens. Let's see. Let's take a look at this one. So our conclusion is z, because we always do show conclusion first, and then we can bring in our premises. There are no more premises, so we're done. We want to look for applications of modus ponens or modus tollens, because we've completed the first stage. There's an application of modus ponens with lines 2 and 3. Why? Line 3 is a conditional. What's its antecedent? If x, then y. Line 2 is if x, then y. So on line 3 we have a conditional. On line 2 we have the antecedent of a conditional. We can apply modus ponens. So we say 2, 3, MP. That gives us z, which is our conclusion. So again, we're done. And let's take a look at another one. Okay. Oh, this is actually, we can skip this. This is similar. Here the conditional is if not x, then y, and we have not x. So we'll do modus ponens with this premise and this premise to get y. I don't want to take the time to do that. All right, let's look at example 4. Okay. So our conclusion is y. Again, we bring in our 2 premises. Okay, so we have not x on line 2. On line 3, we have a conditional. The antecedent is not x. The consequent is y. Okay, so for modus tollens, we would need not y. We don't have not y. We can't do modus tollens. For modus ponens, we need not x. We don't have not x. So we can't do modus ponens immediately. Okay, well, can we get not x? Yes, because we can apply double negation to line 2 and put 2 negations on the front of the not x, and we'll have 3 negations on the front of x. Yeah, so there we have it, right? We had 1 negation in front of x on line 2. When we add 2 more, we have 3 negations on the front of line x on line 4. So we can do 3, 4 modus ponens. There's our y. That's our conclusion. We're done. So this is a case where we have one complex sentence, we apply double negation to it, we get another complex sentence, and then using that complex sentence and a conditional, we do modus ponens. Let's see. What more do we want to do? Let's see, we did 7. Yeah, okay, good. So let's take a look at 5. Just a few more. So here's our conclusion. It's not X. So now it's complex. It had been sentence letters. Now it's a negation. Again, we bring in both of our premises. Can we do modus ponens? No, because the only conditional we have is on line 3. Its antecedent is X, and we don't have X anywhere on a line. Can we do modus tollens? Well, we need the negation of the consequence of line 3. Consequence of line 3 is Y. The negation of the consequence of line 3 is not Y. That's what we have on line 2. So that's 2, 3, modus tollens, not X. Hey, that's our conclusion. We're done. So, stage 1, conclusion and premises. Stage 2, inference rules. Stage 3, box and cancel with direct derivation once we have the conclusion. Alright. So again, first stage, show the conclusion and bring in the premises. Now, can we do modus ponens? Well, our only conditional is on line 3. Its antecedent is X, and we don't have any X's anywhere, so no modus ponens. Can we do modus tollens? Well, you might think we could. We have not Y is on line 3. There's the negation, not Y is the consequent of line 3, and we have Y on line 2. So 2, 3, modus tollens. No form of modus tollens is applicable. Why not? Do you know why not? Modus tollens says you take the consequent of the conditional and put a negation on the front of it. So the consequent of line 3 is not Y. So you put a negation on the front of this, you get not Y. So we need not Y to do modus tollens with line 3. Well, can we get not Y? Yes, we can. If we remember our strategy, stage 2 is inference rules, and it says if you can do modus ponens or modus tollens, do them. If you can't, use DN to set up MP or MT. And we've seen that to produce the antecedent of a consequent of a conditional. Now we're going to do double negation to get the negation of the consequent of a conditional, right? So the consequent is not Y. The consequent of line 3 is not Y. The negation of the consequent of line 3 is not Y, and we can get not Y from line 2, and so now we can do modus tollens with 3 and 4. That gives us not X, right? Modus tollens says if you have a conditional, you have the negation of the consequent of the conditional, you can have the negation of the antecedent. So the antecedent of line 3 is X, so with modus tollens we get not X. That is our conclusion, so we can say 5 direct derivation, and that's a correct derivation. Oh, we've already done this one. So those are our examples, okay? So I hope those are helpful. Let's go back and take a look at the strategy again. So if we have this play out, here's a completed derivation. I'm not showing the argument. It's actually the one we just did. So first thing we do is a setup. First part of the setup is make a show line of the conclusion using show conc. Second part is enter all the premises, so we do that on lines 2 and 3. Second stage is to do inference rules. If we can, we do modus ponens or modus tollens, but in this case we can't because we don't have the antecedent and we don't have the negation of the consequent. But we can use double negation to get the negation of the consequent. So we use double negation to enable MP and MT if we have to. So if we can, MP or MT. If we can't, use double negation to enable MP or MT. And as the derivations get longer, you do modus ponens with one conditional, modus ponens with another conditional, and then you might combine things. But in the simplest cases, it's just like this. So eventually, you're going to complete the derivation because eventually you're going to find a line where you have, oh, there's my conclusion. And on the line after you get that, you're going to say, write down direct derivation and the line number on which you have the conclusion. So there is your basic strategy illustrated. So, I hope that's helpful. I think it should be. Why don't you go ahead and get to work on the problems in the new assignment, the new introduction. You'll find that they're all of this sort of very this sort of form where this strategy will get you through pretty clearly. And then I think once you get a handle with those, you'll feel more comfortable trying some of the more complex derivations from the previous assignments, 3a and 3b and 4a and 4b. And you're going to want to get to work on those so that we can be caught up by next week. So the shorter assignment, the new assignment is due on Thursday, and 3A is due on Thursday, and then you can look and see at how the rest of them are staggered out. If you have questions, please ask me. If you are feeling frustrated and you don't feel like you have a clear question, but you've been working on them, then save your work and post your work or send me your work. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm confused, I don't know but I don't know what question to ask. That's fine. Talk to me, let me know, but give me something to work with. So take a screenshot of the derivation you're working with, and I can give you some feedback to help you move along if you're not sure what question to ask. Okay, good luck, happy deriving.